Welcome you all to this International Solar Energy Society webinar. The title of the webinar is Renewable Transformation Challenge, the Energiewende 3.0 Smart P2P Solar Grids. This is a webinar hosted by the International Solar Energy Society, and we are looking forward to all of your participation and questions in the Q&A session later. Before we begin with the webinar presentations, I would like to inform you about what the International Solar Energy Society is and what it stands for. The International Solar Energy Society is a non-profit UN-accredited membership NGO. The ISES Vision is to achieve 100% renewable energy for all, used efficiently and wisely. We represent a diverse membership of academics, researchers, energy practitioners, consultants, students, businesses, and advocates. ISES works together with like-minded organizations from countries around the world to advance the renewable energy transformation. By becoming a member of ISES, you are supporting the 100% renewable energy movement. So if you're not already a member, we absolutely encourage you to have a look at our membership services and benefits. Please check out our website, www.ises.org, and our membership page where you can complete the online application form is join.ises.org. We understand that sometimes the time of the webinar may not suit people in many parts of the world. While we do try to alternate webinars times to suit as many time zones as possible, it is not always possible. Therefore, we will post the recording of this webinar on the ISES website and on our YouTube channel, so you can look back at those channels and review the webinar again. You are welcome and encouraged to ask questions at any time throughout the webinar. In fact, we really love getting questions into these live events. They make them very interactive and dynamic, and we get a good sense of the webinar audience and the interest in the topics. To ask a question, it's very easy. Just select the questions pane on your screen, and you can type in your question. Please remember to specify who your question is directed to, and questions will be addressed after all the presentations in a Q&A session. We would also like to encourage you to use the ISES discussion forum on LinkedIn to continue the Q&A session and the discussion even after the webinar has ended. I would now like to hand over to the webinar moderator, David Hopwood from Elsevier, who will take you through the agenda, introduce the speakers, and also moderate the Q&A session. I hope you all enjoy our webinar, and over to you, David.
So, thank you very much, Joanna. Thanks for inviting me today. Great to be here. I'd like to second your welcome to everyone. I believe we've got quite a few people on the call today, which is good. Just a quick introduction from me. My name is David Hopwood. I am a publisher at Elsevier, and I look after a portfolio of journals in the energy and atmospheric sciences fields. I don't want to take up too much of your time because we do have some excellent speakers, and I want to give them as much time as possible, as well as leave some space for some questions at the end, which, as Joanna says, always makes things nice and interactive. What I did want to do is just take a couple of minutes or so to give a very brief introduction to the Renewable Transformation Challenge and outline really what led to its formation. So as you may know, Elsevier and the International Solar Energy Society have a successful and long-standing collaboration in several areas, really. Perhaps best known is the collaboration on the excellent and well-known Solar Energy Journal, which I'm glad to say continues to go from strength to strength. In addition to that, and perhaps worth mentioning, the Society has also been a key partner of Elsevier's Renewable Energy Focus Journal since its launch way back in the early 2000s. And actually at that time, Renewable Energy Focus was one of the few business publications covering the renewables sector. So it was actually seen as something of a pioneer back then. Okay, let's move forward. In 2016, Elsevier and ISES first conceived of the idea of a sort of brand new prize in the field of renewable energy, and thus the Renewable Transformation Challenge was born. And what did we want to achieve with this new prize? Well, as is now widely known and documented, tackling climate change by burning less fossil fuel is one of the most significant challenges we face. But at the same time, it's vital that all nations have access to energy, especially developing countries. In order to address both of these challenges, i.e. Limiting global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees C, while allowing communities in different parts of the world to access energy they need to grow and flourish, it's really, really important to stimulate innovative technologies, solutions and applications in fields like renewable energy. And it's that goal that really was the starting point for the idea of a sort of collaborative renewable energy award. So we at Elsevier, along with the International Solar Energy Society, wanted to present an exciting opportunity to encourage solutions that positively impact the environment and society as a whole, by promoting the idea that one, transformation to 100% renewable energy is possible in particular locations and region, and that two, energy can be accessible to all, especially those who really need it in developing nations. So with that in mind, by offering a prize with financial support, which was €20,000, as well as helping showcase an organisation and its solution, we also show what can be achieved in terms of energy innovation, something that really is so fundamental to fighting climate change, while encouraging energy autonomy around the world. You could put it like that. So that's just a little bit about the background to the conception of the award. We'll hear a little bit more about the specifics shortly from our other speakers. But before that, as you know, the prize winner has now been officially announced. So I will mention that before we go any further. The committee selected Dr. Sebastian Gros of ME Solskjaer Limited as the winner of the inaugural Renewable Transformation Challenge. And Dr. Gros wins the award for a project, the Energiewende 3.0, Smart P2P Solar Grids. And he's going to tell us more about this later, I'm sure. But in short, a Solskjaer grid is created when rural households or SMEs agree on setting up a swarm network that consists of existing and new solar home systems and storage devices, which basically enabling the interconnection of larger loads. So a big congratulations, Sebastian. As I say, we'll hear much more about that in about 15 to 20 minutes or so. But before we do, it gives me great pleasure to invite our first speaker to give a little bit more information about the award and the process itself. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome Professor Yogi Goswami, who is a distinguished university professor and director of the Clean Energy Research Center at the University of South Florida. He is the editor-in-chief, as you all know, of Solar Energy and Progress in Solar Energy, as well as being the author or editor of 21 books and over 350 refereed papers. He holds 18 US patents, some of which have been commercialized around the world. And Professor Goswami has served as president of the International Solar Energy Society and president of the International Association for Solar Energy Education, as well as being a governor as ASME International. So a busy man, as I'm sure you all know. So great to have you on the call, Yogi. Over to you. Please do unmute your phone now and please give us your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, David, for that long introduction. You did not need to say all of those things, but I appreciate it. And hello, everyone. Let me thank all of you for your interest in the International Solar Energy Society, and especially now in this new global award, which is the award of the International Solar Energy Society, but well supported and funded by the Elsevier publishing group. Elsevier, as you know, is the publisher of our journal, Solar Energy Journal, as well as many other renewable energy, as well as solar and wind energy journals. So we really appreciate David for support of Elsevier for this award. Let me just give you a brief overview of this award. The vision of ISES, the International Solar Energy Society, is a world that's powered by 100% renewable energy, used efficiently and wisely, and accessible for all. Now, to achieve this vision, a global transformation of our energy systems to efficient and affordable renewable energy must take place. And this award is in support of that vision. There are many people around the world who are doing things that would allow us to achieve that ISES vision. And so we want to find out more about them, and we want to recognize the ones that are really making that transformation. Now, to apply for this award, it can be any ongoing projects, innovative technologies, any policy initiatives, research programs, analyses or complete solutions that demonstrate how this goal is being met. Now, in the energy scenario, it could be either side, whether it's energy generation, using solar and renewable energies, or it could be on the consumption side, that is energy efficiency, because we need all of that to be able to meet our goal of 100% renewable energy in the future. And the award includes all kinds of energy consumption, whether it's electrical power, heat, transport, wherever we use energy, and your project or your initiative meets our goal, is eligible for this award. It can be either a micro concept or a macro concept, could be local, regional, national, global, or applicants may address any or all of these areas. However, the applications must demonstrate applicability, the impact of their initiative or their project, sustainability and scalability to a global scale. Innovative ideas that can really transform our energy picture will be especially given preference over incremental improvements. So with this as the background, I know that we have gone through the first cycle, and later on, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
That's great. Thank you very much, Yogi. Really interesting. Look forward to hearing a little bit more from you later on in the Q&A. At this stage, I'd like to invite our second speaker to add her perspectives. I'm delighted to say we have Monica Oliphant on the call. I'm sure you all know Monica, but just to give a brief introduction. Monica is, of course, a past president of ISES and an adjunct associate professor at 3 Australian universities. She was actually employed for 18 years in the electricity supply industry, but now runs her own consultancy. She's also received several awards in recognition for her work in renewable energy, and has also served on a number of Australian federal and state Australian government energy-related committees. Currently, she's working to develop community-owned solar and energy efficiency projects together with local governments. So I would imagine that this prize, and certainly the prize winner, and what he has to say will be really interesting for Monica shortly. But for now, great to have you on the call, Monica. Please do remember to unmute your phone. I'd like to pass over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, and thanks to Elsevier for developing this prize. I was really quite impressed. We had over 400 submissions, and it was both Yogi and my job to eliminate those that didn't meet the criteria or hadn't been completed, and we then passed on those that were full submissions onto an international panel of experts, and there were well over 20 experts, and each submission was looked at by by at least 2 judges, and looked at for a certain set of criteria. Although concepts were definitely in, those projects that actually had gone to completion did get a higher weight, and those that in one of the questions it was, what are you going to do with the prize? And one person said, we're going to have a party, and that wasn't that was a bit low on the we didn't rate that one particularly highly. However, there were some really good presentations, and they did demonstrate all the criteria as below for 100% transformation to renewable energy, were replicable and scalable, and were a benchmark for innovation, and have a clear practical application, and were suitable for use in developing countries. And actually that was the interesting thing. I would say that over 50% of the submissions were applicable for developing countries. And if we can have the next slide, please, on the top 10 entries. If we can go to the next slide. If you look through them, you will see that actually about half of the top 10 did in fact were developing country type projects, and 4 out of these 10 came from Bangladesh or India, 2 from Australia, and the rest from the remaining 4, Finland, USA, South Africa, and Japan. So there was quite a spread of countries, and but there was a definite trend towards helping out developing countries, which is really good. I was very pleased about that. I will stop there because I'm really interested to hear what our winner has to say. Their group on SoulShare really put in a very good submission that I'm glad won. I wasn't involved with the judging, but when I saw it, I thought it was a really good submission. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Monica. It's really interesting to hear that. 400 submissions, that's really, really impressive. And like you say, it's really promising as well that so many could be relevant to the developing world as well. As for the party, maybe we should do that for the next award. Throw a party for the next winner so that they don't have to spend their prize money on one. Yeah, I'll have a think about that. Great, many thanks both. That's a really, really thorough introduction to the award and the process. So I think the time is now right to move on to our keynote speaker today. Actually, before I do that, can I just remind you, don't forget to send your questions in. It'd be really good to get a few more questions in so that we can pose those during the Q&A. Okay, I mentioned him earlier as the winner of the inaugural prize for his Energiewende 3.0 Smart P2P Solar Grids Initiative, and I would like to introduce him officially and properly now. So Dr. Sebastian is a 2013 Stanford Ignite Fellow from the Stanford Graduate School of Business, and he also holds a PhD from Aalborg University in Denmark, where he actually wrote his thesis on the role of energy in development processes, energy poverty, and technical innovations. Really interesting mix of themes there. He's also published a book and multiple peer-reviewed journal articles on the topic of decentralized electrification in the global south. Since 2014, Sebastian has been working in Bangladesh as the CEO and co-founder of ME Soulshare Limited. He's also an assistant professor in the MBA program at North-South University in Dhaka. And in a previous life, he worked on the trading floor at Commerzbank in Frankfurt, at the microfinance institution ProCredit in El Salvador, at Planet Finance in India, and he spent several years at the consultancy firm at Microenergy International in locations around the globe. So I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's some really, really diverse but interesting mix of experience there. We're really, really delighted you can join us today, Sebastian. We're looking forward to hearing some more about the work you're doing at Soulshare. So congratulations again on your award. And I'd like to invite you to continue with your presentation now. Please do remember to unmute yourself as well. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much, David, and also thank you, Monica and Yogi. And on behalf of the whole Soulshare team, of course, we were extremely happy when we heard that we made it through out of this competitive field. And we just saw the top 10. I know some of the companies and they're really, really good. So I also want to congratulate them. Possibly some of them are online right now. And so really thank you to the committee, thank you to Elsevier, and thank you to ISES. A small disclaimer, I'm talking out of Dhaka right now, and the country decided to dig into the internet submarine cable as we speak, and it will last another 2 days. So in case I drop out, then they probably made a mistake while digging it. The good news is they're putting a bigger cable in for us, so the internet will get better for the country. But just as a disclaimer. Yeah, and then jumping right into it, as we just heard, I have my roots in Germany, so I called the presentation and also the Energiewende, so the energy transition, as we maybe some of you know it, the feed-in tariff, the Energieeinspeisegesetz from Germany kind of kicked off a lot of what's happening in the renewable space. But we are very proud that we managed to take this transition actually to Bangladesh and made it here a homegrown innovation, and actually started an energy transition in villages, or a whole movement in villages in Bangladesh, where people from whom you would maybe least expected it start trading electricity peer-to-peer. And the first grid we inaugurated in September 2015 was in fact the world's first smart peer-to-peer solar grid at all. A couple of months later, a similar grid based on the blockchain was inaugurated in Brooklyn in New York. And later on, the New York Times mentioned both our grids hand in hand, and we were of course extremely proud of that. And especially our team here, that this, and also the country here, that this new innovation came from here was really, really a big issue for us. Please, Joanna, if you could switch to the next slide. So probably this is no news for most of you. There's 1.1 billion people who lack access to electricity around the globe. The numbers have just been republished last week by the International Energy Agency in their World Energy Outlook. And there is an additional billion of people who have a very intermittent access to electricity. I'm proud to say that if you change the slide, what you will see is that a revolution has begun in Bangladesh a long time back, where today up to 5 million solar home systems have been installed in the country, which is another world record. And you see in this picture, this is a small bazaar with adjunct houses. There are some, if you count them, there are some 62 solar panels in this very dense market space, all in case people have multiple panels and so forth. And this will also probably ring a bell for you, why we chose to start this innovation in Bangladesh, because we have this incredible density of people. Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, if not the most densest country in the world, if you take out city-states. And at the same time, it has had this incredible success in disseminating solar home systems through players like ITCOL, which is an entity here who's supervising this program, through institutions like Grameen Shakti and so forth. But at the same time, there are still about 60 million people who do not have access. And I think what makes our project a little bit special is it has been born out of a mix of scientific research, but also including a lot of field stays here in Bangladesh throughout the PhD of my colleagues who we founded a company here. And what we found, if we switch to the next slide, please, is that people in Bangladesh already started trading electricity. What that meant is basically that you give your mobile phone, which by now almost everybody has in the country. You give it to your neighbor for charging if you don't have access to electricity. Or your neighbor may throw over a line with a bulb and charges you for that. And that may cost 5-10 takas, which is like $6 to $12. If we convert this into kilowatt hours, we come to these enormous prices of like $3.50 for a kilowatt hour of electricity to power a light, or even $10, more than $10 to charge a phone. So this is an economic opportunity. We saw this kind of extreme user behavior. At the same time, if we go to the next slide, we put data lockers into these 5 million solar home systems, not in all of them, obviously, but into a subset. And we found that these systems are designed in a way that they cater electricity both during the monsoon season and during the non-monsoon season, which means the battery needs to be fairly large so that you have certain days of autonomy. But at the same time, it cannot be too large, because if you make the battery too big, it's never fully charged, which is very bad for the health of this battery. This turns out that all these solar home systems by design have about a daily excess energy of 300,000 kilowatt hours. And if you're wondering how much that is, you can basically take a Tesla and drive around the world 3 times with this amount of power. And this is the daily dumped energy or excess energy in Bangladesh that cannot be stored by the individual solar home systems. So if we go to the next slide, what we did is we had this extreme user behavior where people already share electricity, also in a very crude way. We have this masses of people who do not have access to electricity. And at the same time, we have people who have solar home systems, but who have just developed this taste for electricity, a thirst for electricity, who want more power. So what we are suggesting, or what we have introduced, is a platform approach where solar home system users and non-users can exchange electricity. So they are physically interconnected and equipped with a smart meter, which allows them to trade electricity or to share electricity. And this value of sharing really has a huge impact so far on the people. They save money through better energy access, because we have a clear synergy effect if we put these systems together. They gain flexibility, which means whenever they need more power, they just buy it, and whenever they don't, or they have, a very volatile budget, then they can just say, okay, look, I sell my power now. I don't watch TV tonight, or I don't use the fan. I sell this power because I need money. And thinking it through, we have our first customers who buy solar panels only for the purpose of selling this electricity. So they become entrepreneurs because they can generate income, or as the people in the villages says, I make money from the sun, which is something completely out of the mind for them and mind-blowing. And this is what really motivates it and makes us move on. I think an important part is that if you switch to the next slide, please, Joanna, is once you have this platform in place, as it is a peer-to-peer network, we do not have a centralized system, which means we can grow step by step organically. There is no technical limit. We can always connect the next house, the next house, the next house. At the same time, within our grid, people can decide to buy another panel, can decide to buy another battery for storage, start buying new appliances. The moment they are no longer kind of, you know, shut out, that the capacity of the solar home system somehow constrains them, they start buying appliances. We see it in a moment in some of our user stories, like all kinds of things we wouldn't have imagined before that they're running, which DC fridges, laptops, tablets, and so forth, or a sewing machine with they want to have a motor. We see small water pumps and so forth. And if we go to the next slide, we see the device which makes this possible, which is what we call the Sol box, which is essentially a net metering device. But it doesn't show like we know it as a meter. It doesn't show kilowatt hours, but it shows taka, which is the local currency here. So the people basically, whenever they use more power, their balance goes down, and whenever they sell power, if they are in the prosumerism, if they are prosumer and are net producers, their balance goes up. And the best thing is everything is mobile money enabled, which means we have a real-time settlement. The people who make money from the sun can use this money in real time to buy their rice, to buy their daily things, because mobile money in Bangladesh, through bKash and other players, is extremely, has penetrated the country to an extreme, to the latest villages by now. If we look at the next slide, just very briefly, to underline that the Sol box really is only the tip of the iceberg. But just behind this network is a huge set of data services. We have our own backend. We have very skilled software engineers here recruited in Dhaka for the data management services to manage the backend, to manage the grid. We at all times, you have to imagine, we can see how much people, how much all the people in the grid produce, how much they store, how much they trade, what kind of appliances they run. So we have all these curves, the PV curve, the load curves, and so forth, and can of course learn a lot from that. We have algorithms how the people trade electricity among each other. We have the dream to have there a machine learning element so that the algorithm gets smarter and is really tailored to the individual people. We are not there yet by far, but so we have kind of an algorithm by now, which we think is the most efficient, but people also can actively intervene and say, okay, I want to sell more, or I want to buy more, or they can leave in the auto mode. So a lot of technology in the back end, but I think there was enough technology. And if we go to the next slide, let's have a look how this actually looks like. So this is the first grid I spoke about, which we installed in Shariatpur in September 2015. This is a Chow Island, which means Chow is in the Bangla word that there's a lot of islands or small sandbanks rather on the huge rivers in Bangladesh, which will never get access to the national grid because it's impossible to get the grid to those. So this is one example. And if we look into this village, if we go to the next slide, we see a couple of images. Proud villagers, because they call themselves smart, because they have now a smart gram, a smart village. So we see some of these instances. On the right top side, we see the small panel and then the really big panel. The really big panel is what I meant by smart entrepreneurship. This woman found out that she can earn money if she has more capacity. So she bought a big panel and said, okay, fine, now I start trading. I trade it all off and I make money. And the break even is within the first 6 months. So that's really a good opportunity for the people to have an incremental income. we go to the next slide, another observation we had is the people call our meter not a meter, but they call it the energy bank, or the Bangla equivalent of that, because often they actually opt not to cash out. We have pay as you go and cash out as you go, but actually to use this Sol box as an energy bank or as a savings account, which is an interesting observation we made and we did not foresee actually. And last but not least, I wanted to give you a little bit, not too many numbers, but I wanted to show you the impact we have. So if we go to the next slide, we are strongly dedicated to the SDGs and obviously to SDG 7 or the sub goal 7.1 for the universal energy access, electricity access in our case. But we also know that SDG 7 is an enabler for a majority of the other goals. And if we look into one of our grids, and I want to take you for at least the next 4 minutes, and then I will stop. I want to take you through one of our grids in a bazaar. So if we go to the next slide, you will see Molla Bazaar, which is in Rangabali, which is in the very south of the country. I put a small map on the left top hand. And it is incredible how resilient these people are. What happened is before installing the grid, you know, we monitored the area, and then we heard the news that a tsunami is coming and will roll over this village. So we put the installation on hold, and the tsunami went over and destroyed quite a bit of the village. But after 2 days, one of the villagers called us and said, "Where are you guys? Are you scared or what?" And we said, like, "Look, we want to give you a little bit of time, you know, to get back on your feet." They said, no worries. Everything is done. We're just waiting for you. Please come and install. We want to have these benefits. So to introduce you to a few people, if you can go to the next slide, please. We have here Abu Kalam, and Abu Kalam is very interesting because the moment he had our Solbox, what he did is very smart. He has a tea shop. And what he did is he bought quite a big TV. So there is some money in the field, and he bought this TV and shows Bollywood movies now as soon as the sun sets. And for this TV to run, of course, he needs more power. But he charges the people now 10 taka, that's about $12 if they want to watch the movie. And of course, additionally, he sells them his tea and biscuits and so forth. And he's very happy about this, you know, diversification of his tea shop and essentially this additional offering. If we go to the next slide, we see another shop owner who has a small computer shop, and he had one computer and he could kind of run it. Now he has 2 computers, so you know he could double his business there. And also, what I failed to mention so far, we offer internet because our boxes are online. So we had to put internet into the village. What happens is often in Bangladesh, the internet just goes over the village, and you don't have proper access in the village. So what we did is we put a bigger bamboo and basically replicated the signal, brought it down, buy it in bulk, and so the people have a better internet access and can also avail that. If we go to the next slide, we see someone who is also, again, he has, you can see he has a laptop there. He even has a small printer. But he also is already planning to buy additional panels in order to make money. So he already brings this smart entrepreneurship mindset with him. And on the next slide, we have a very happy face, Dr. Bimol, who is the local pharmacist, who says, who already was one of the people who threw over the cable and said, you know, now I don't have to worry about collecting money anymore because everything, you know, happens automatically. The settlement is all automated. And what is interesting is also he wants to buy a nebulizer, which is for kids who have breathing problems. And he didn't do it yet because he couldn't power it. Now he wants to buy it, and we're very excited to have our first new appliance we have never seen before to run from solar or to run in such a small grid. And last but not least, we have, if we flip to the next slide, we have Shuja, who so far could not even run a light. So he's just buying. He doesn't have a system of his own, but now he just buys, and he doesn't need to buy a solar home system, which usually in Bangladesh means if you buy a solar home system, that's an asset, that's a huge investment, and that you pay in microcredit, you pay in 24 to 36 installments. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to commit for that. So he said, that's fine. I buy you a box, which I can pay in cash, and then I just buy incrementally whatever power I need. So he preferred that. This was my little tour through the village. I wanted to, on the next slide, thank our partners which supported us. I will not name them all out now, but obviously we had a lot of support, both within the country from Bangladesh as well as from international organizations. And now we can add to the list proudly Elsevier and ISES. And yeah, I want to keep time for the discussion. So in the next slide is just saying thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to the committee. Thank you to Elsevier and ISES. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
That's great, Sebastian. Many, many thanks for that. Really, really fascinating. I'm sure everyone will agree. And I mean, to me, the first thing that jumps out is just, how this is enabling some of these communities to feel really, really empowered and move on with other things that they want to do in their lives and in their businesses and at home, just by having these technologies now available to them. So I do think it sounds like an excellent, innovative initiative. Just a quick note for the audience: if you are interested in having a look at Sebastian's slides in a little bit more depth, they are actually, or they will be, I believe, available shortly via the ISES website. So please do feel free to get them from there. Great. We do have a few minutes then for the Q&A. So I'll kick off with that. And maybe if I can just fire away straight away at Sebastian. I hope you don't mind, because we have got quite a few questions coming in. One thing I was quite interested in, so how does this work in terms of the technical capabilities or the technical knowledge of the local populations where these systems are being installed? What level of expertise or knowledge do some of these people need to have? Because I guess some of them won't really have that much expertise. I wonder if you could just say a few words to that.
Yeah, thanks, David. I mean, I think that's an excellent question. And I mean, 5 million solar home systems in a country means, and built over the last 15 to 20 years, we call it energy literacy. And we really, when we go to the villages, we are always surprised what a high level of energy literacy there is. If I go in Dhaka to a store and want to buy a microwave, they tell me, take this one. It consumes 5,000 watts. It's really powerful. If I go to a village and they want to buy a TV, they ask me, how much does it consume? And if I tell them 30 watts, they say, that's no good. I can get a TV consuming only 10 watts. And we're talking a 17-inch LED color TV. They are very conscious about the limitations their systems have. They really know what watt means, and they know what consumption means. And I think they know much better than anybody in Dhaka what it means to be energy efficient. And in terms of our grid, it is really, some people refer to us like the ADB. We're like the Uber of the off-grid world. And Uber was introduced in Bangladesh just at the beginning of the year, and it took a little bit of time. Same for us. It takes a little bit of time to people believe that they can share electricity. But we're trying to make the meter like very intuitive, to have this auto mode that essentially the only thing they have to do is to look at their phone and see how their balance, or at the meter, and to see how their balance is going up or down. And of course, then we have people, hey, no, I don't want to buy that much. And then I said, okay, then press a button on the meter and say stop. You know, you can do that. It's no problem. It's like a panic button. So we're trying to make the human-machine interface as intuitive as possible, which of course means a lot of pivoting. We had a lot of discussions here. We still have, and it's not an easy job, but we're getting there.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds interesting. So presumably, there's, I mean, does it work completely on by app? Got a question here. Does it work on app, or is everything in the box?
We have an app for our local SAM, who's a social area manager, who can manage a lot of things through an app. But the boxes themselves are connected to our Wi-Fi tower, and then the Wi-Fi tower in turn is connected to our backend. So we can also change a lot of parameters here out of our Dhaka office. Actually, we can change, you know, we can change things like low voltage disconnect if we feel that, you know, the batteries are too old and it doesn't really work like that. We can change trading parameters. We can change a lot of things.
Okay, interesting. I mean, a couple of questions coming in about the sort of logistics of the actual trading mechanism. So, is it that the trade of electricity is among the consumers rather than the utility? And if so, how is the actual payment made to the, you know, the homeowner, if you like? Does that make sense?
Okay. So first of all, So first of all, it's fully decentralized, literally. So there is no utility. If there is a utility, then it's one of the villagers themselves who decided to, you know, buy a really big panel. And even for that, we said we take a trading fee. And if someone trades more than a certain amount, we kind of have a progressive trading fee. So, you know, to avoid monopolies within the village, we want to keep it, you know, on fair grounds. So there is no utility per se. And then the settlement works in the way that we have a bid and an ask price, and there's a spread, which is our revenue. And the settlement works through the mobile phone, through the mobile money accounts they have. There's no cash in the village. Zero cash.
Okay, that's interesting. So completely zero cash. So is there a way to guarantee somehow that you will be, you know, that a consumer will be paid?
Oh, it's prepaid. So you can only trade if you have sufficient balance on your meter. If your meter is at zero, you cannot buy. So sorry, I think I forgot a few elements. It's prepaid, so it's always guaranteed that you get paid. It is not guaranteed that you can trade at all times, because there may be instances when, you know, you have a lot of extra power, but so have your neighbors. So obviously we are looking for diversified usage patterns, which is why we have the mixtures of bazaars and households. We have a wide set of appliances. All this plays into the hands that the grid becomes more stable, in the sense of that when people want to trade, they actually can also trade. If we feel that there's too much of an imbalance, we put in a system of ourselves. Then we have a kind of micro utility. Then we just put in a social system. And once people get a hang on it, we just give the ownership of the social system to a local household, and then he is the owner or she, and has it as a micro utility model.
Right, interesting. A quick question here about and I think this links in nicely to the award as well, and the prize fund, which as everyone knows is €20,000. So I'm just interested in what kind of difference this award could make to SolShare, and also a question that's perhaps linked, that's come in from the audience. It seems that demand is growing quite dramatically now for this solution. So what's the plan for sort of increasing the line capacity? And I'm wondering whether these two things go hand in hand. So I'm assuming that the prize will help with that particular sort of scale up and expansion.
Yeah, these are very good questions. I mean, first to the prize money. I'm glad to say that we have already started to make use of the money. So what happens is it's a sharing economy approach. But unfortunately, in these villages, if they trade electricity among each other, that's great because there are efficiency increases. We tap into lost power, but it has limitations in terms of how much the village can really develop. So we were looking for a way, how can we get outside currency into this village? And the first thing we saw whenever we are there, when we're moving in them ourselves, is there are by now close to 1 million rickshaws in the rural areas of Bangladesh, which are battery run, but at the same time, they cannot be charged because there's no grid. So what they do in the night is they have to drive all the way to the grid and then either illegally or partially legally charge their rickshaws. That takes 8 to 10 hours. Then they have to sleep in their rickshaw, and it's also unsafe the way they do it. And then they drive back and lose part of their charge. So we said, wouldn't it be awesome if we could offer charging stations as a means of these interconnected solar home systems? And this is what we also set in our application we want to try out, because for this we need a little bit of we need to experiment a little bit, because it's new grounds, it's much higher loads. So what we did now, what we started is we built a kind of a carport, which is the roof is basically the a bigger solar panel next to a tea shop. And at first, to start this, we have it as a pit stop, which means when the rickshaws come into the village and have their lunch or their tea, they stop their rickshaw and it's being charged maybe for 1 hour. That means 1 hour is, you can give about 5 to 10% charge. And this charge comes from the bigger panel, but also from the neighboring houses. So this is how we get money into the village. And this is what we started to do. So we had to do some development work, which has been completed now. And now we have our first prototype, which we want to roll out. That much for the new capacity. In terms of the cable capacity, the biggest hurdle is distance, because I said before, we need this density. But people may think, okay, you know, we have DC lines, you have losses and so forth. That's actually not so much a problem. You can go up to 48 volts between the houses and have fairly low losses if we are in a density circle. What becomes prohibitive before that is the price of cables, because every meter of cable costs us about $60. So the unit economics fall apart if I interconnect someone who is maybe half a kilometer away. That is just too expensive. It will not. The unit economics do not will not work out there.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I mean, it's good to hear there a little bit about the some of the challenges as well. Sort of following on from that a little bit, how replicable is the solution, for example, moving more into sub-Saharan African countries? I think there's somebody from the audience, maybe from Senegal. It would be interesting to hear about any, from your perspective, any technical limitations that you think there might be for deployment of SolShare in places like Senegal or other places. You may have covered that a little bit already in your answers, so if you have, sorry. I don't know if you want to say anything else on that.
So maybe just the frank answer is I don't know. And I'm very careful here, because first of all, the distances between the houses in Senegal are not comparable to Bangladesh. So we will have different unit economics. We do not have, you know, this much of a past of solar home system installations in terms of numbers, in terms of people who in the last mile know how a solar home system works, who have this kind of energy literacy. The situation will be much more greenfield, whereas we are here operating kind of in a brownfield environment, if you want to stick to this vocabulary. So it is hard to say. We knew that we have quite a couple of disruptive innovations here going. So that's why we went to Bangladesh, where we believe is the best suitable place. And if we manage it here, then we can think ahead and say, okay, let's see whether it works in India. Let's see whether it works in a sub-Saharan African context. But it's too early to say.
Sure. Okay. Good answer. Thanks very much, Sebastian. I'm conscious of the time. We've got about 5 minutes remaining, something like that. We have received quite a few more really interesting questions. So what I'm going to suggest we do, because I'd like to give Yogi and Monica a chance just to answer one final question. What I'd like to do is follow up with Joanna and see whether it will be possible at some point to go back to these questions and get them answered by Sebastian offline. Do you think that might be possible, Joanna?
Yeah, what I can do is I can send the list of questions over with the contact
Brilliant.
details. Yeah.
That sounds perfect. That's great. Thanks very much. Apologies we haven't been able to get through all of them. But Sebastian, it's been really interesting. Congratulations again on the award, and I just really want to wish you all the best with it. For Yogi and Monica, just one last question really, and I think there are one or two questions coming in about the next Renewable Transformation Challenge that we haven't really started talking about yet, but I'm sure when we do, ISES will be able to give everybody information about that. But from your perspective, I'd like to ask you, from the 400 entries we heard, which is fantastic, from going through these this time around, do you have any advice that you'd offer anyone entering the next prize competition? And I guess maybe throw that open to Yogi first and then Monica after that for your pearls of wisdom.
Okay, all right. Well, let me say, based on our experience of looking at the entries this time, as you may remember that I mentioned that the applications must demonstrate applicability, impact, sustainability, and scalability, which means that they have to be practical. The kinds of entries that we felt this time that were not suitable were where people were applying for research projects.
Right.
For example, writing a proposal and say, okay, if you give me this award, that I will do this proposal, this research, and this may lead to something. Those are, nice things to do, but I think that there are other research agencies that could fund those kinds of research projects, and they're not really suitable for this award. Now, if some research has been done and you can show that based on that, your idea is applicable globally, it will have impact and is sustainable, well, then it becomes suitable for this award. So I'll move.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Monica, if you want to add something to it.
I forgot to unmute myself.
No worries.
I agree with Yogi. There were a number of submissions that just wanted to fund concepts and used it as a funding agency. What I was surprised about was that there were very few technology initiatives and we were expecting to see them, new advances in PV or solar thermal and so on. So I'd encourage people to go down that line, as well as looking to put in projects for developing countries. Thank you. But I was with the top 10. That was a great selection of projects.
Excellent, good stuff. And I would encourage everyone to have a list of to have a look through that list of the top 10 and familiarise yourself with them. And again, that should give you some ideas as to the kinds of projects that the judging committees were impressed with. Right. Okay. I think we're nearly.
If I may, let me add something here.
Yeah.
That I do want to congratulate Sebastian for winning this award because their entry was excellent. But at the same time, the others in top 10 should also feel very proud of what they are doing and their entries, because they were also excellent entries.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both, and thanks again, Sebastian. Okay, so thank you very much for having me today as well. I'm now going to pass over again to Joanna to wrap things up, but just remains for me to say thanks very much everyone for being here, and enjoy the rest of your weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Joanna, are you there? Are you unmuted?
Sorry, I also forgot to unmute. Thanks very much, David, for moderating this webinar. You did a fantastic job, and it was very enjoyable. Thank you to Monica and Yogi for coming online as part of the judging committee and representing all the judges in the advisory committee. There was a lot of work and a lot of people involved in coordinating this award, also from Elsevier's side. So thank you all very much. And of course, big congratulations to Sebastian, and the best of luck to him and SolShare for the future. We will be hearing SolShare again at the Solar World Congress, and that's on the screen right now, the banner of the conference. I'm actually leaving for Abu Dhabi tomorrow. The conference is next week, so do check out the website if you're interested in having a look at what's happening there. Sebastian, unfortunately, won't be attending, but the co-founder, Daniel Sigankovic, will be there. We're very much looking forward to welcoming him at the conference, and he's going to be giving a keynote speech as well and be presented in the dinner and award ceremony with the award. So we're very much looking forward to that. Last slide, I want to thank the audience for their participation. We had so many questions, a lot of interest in this topic, in the award and in Sebastian's presentation, and it's been wonderful to read all the feedback. I'd like you to all complete the survey at the end of the webinar to give us an idea about your opinions of the webinar, and also tune in for our next webinar, which takes place in November. And the invitations will be sent out to all of you then, and the website will be updated. To contact the panelist speakers of this webinar, please have a look at their contact details in the presentation that Sebastian has provided, which is available on the ISES website, and contact him directly. If you use social media, we encourage you to connect with us to continue the discussion and to stay tuned into the work we're doing, and of course to the next Renewable Transformation Challenge, which I believe will be awarded in 2019 at the Solar World Congress. And last but not least, thank you to our audience for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you at another ISES webinar. You may view the recording in a couple of hours on our website. If you have any comments or feedback, we welcome you to share this with us so that we can continue to improve our webinar service for you. Please participate in the survey or send your feedback to public.relations@ises.org. That's all. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Joanna. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Joanna. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.